We on the Carcass beach here. We sit down on a pirogue. We see behind us rain coming in there. We might get wet during this interview. And we have the opportunity to sit down here and talk today with Michael Cozier, who is the author of 2 books. So I came quite to Carcass, which is about 3 hours from civilization, to talk to this guy, right? And yeah, so as I said, he's the author of 2 books. He's working on a 3rd book right now. His first book is a book called Forward Ever, Backward Never. And he has a book called Bend Foot Billion. Each one has 10 short stories in it. So we're just going to talk to Michael a little bit, find out some of the things that inspire him and what might be in store for us in the future. So Mike, you know, you could just in about 2 minutes or so tell us a little bit about yourself and the village you're from here.
Okay, well, this Carcass village is a fishing village really, right, with a lot of tradition. We have people from almost every island in the West Indies at some point or the other in time flocked to this little village here and made a living in fishing, right? So we really have like a melting pot of the Caribbean and a small place here.
Okay, this is as far back as when, so you're talking about?
Well, I could go as far back as my childhood in the early 1960s.
Okay.
Right? The early 1960s, 70s. And then it was because of the geographical location of the village here with the Orinoco waters coming in and things, a rich fishing ground, and fishing was at a peak. This was the prime fishing destination as a village in the country.
So this very beach that we're on here right now, as a little boy, what would this beach have been like?
Okay, well, the boat owners in the village here all had little shacks on the beach where they used to house the men to go out to sea and things, you know. Little shacks lining the whole beach going down for about 200 yards in either direction.
Okay.
Yeah. But over the years, the fishing industry has fallen because of the trawlers, climate change and all that kind of thing. So the village now is not what it used to be.
Okay.
In those times.
All right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to get straight to the point now, you know, when writing became something that you knew you were interested in?
Okay, now, what we are here is, as I say, men coming from different islands with different cultures, right? And when I was a young boy growing up, I used to observe all these interesting characters, you know what I mean? Used to have fights, all kind of thing, yeah, man, fellas fighting over the pronunciation of our word because a Grenadian speaking the word in one way of extension, and a Trinidadian fella might put in his part and say this is the proper way to speak the word.
Okay,
Yeah, they used to have gambling and everything you could think about, every sin under the sun.
Existed it?
Yeah. And what happened is, like, after I left and went to school and thing, and I came back to the village, like, all in the 1990s and thing, the whole structure that I knew here with all the houses and things had practically fallen apart. The fish, because of the trawlers and all that, the fishing industry had taken a downward turn. And you know, I kind of miss those days, the nostalgia, these different characters. I mean, I can't even begin to describe some of these fellas, the things that they used to do. We had a famous boxer living here for about 20 years on Barbados, Jogans, right? And boy, you could you can't really begin to imagine some of the things that these fellas used to do.
So it's kind of just about recreating the past.
Yes, what happened is that I realized that this type of activities that we had in this village wouldn't come here again. And I wanted to kind of document it and share it with the people. You know, the entertainment factor of this whole thing, I mean, is something else.
And one of your, what you could remember the first thing that you ever wrote?
Well, what happened is when I started to work, I work on boats, and you know, like in my pastime, I think I just sit down and think about these fellas and things. And one of the first things that I began to write, one of the first things that I began to write was the story about the Bajan boxer. Okay, right? And you know, most of the story is true, right? And just adding parts, and yeah, so I used to be scribbling on the book, on tour reports and all them kind of thing, and keep it over the years and keep on writing on any piece of paper you could have find, you understand, bills and that kind of thing. And then I used to stuck these things in a little box and I give like my nieces and nephews and anybody who was willing to read, and they found them so amusing that they encouraged me to put them into thing, and that is how the books came about. Yeah.
Throughout these stories, regardless of the team that you're working on, one of the things I notice is a lot of humor being evident. And what do you think is responsible for this?
Okay, I come from a family of brothers and sisters who could conjure up humor out of almost any situation. And we were kind of brought up along that line, you know, to be able to laugh at tragedy, to be able to recuperate from harsh obstacles and things. And I think that has transferred to my writing. You know, that able to create humor in desperate situations, in harsh situations, in bad stories.
And you think it's primarily the background that you came from and some of the experiences you went through?
I would say so. Because you know, we learn to laugh through all circumstances of our family.
So humor was almost like medicine for you all in dark situations.
Yes.
All right. Second book, Benford Bailey, you've moved away from the carcass setting. Your writing is not all of them, but you've moved away from it in that it's very diverse. The first book is targeted heavily towards the carcass, where every story is based here in this coastal village. Is it that you wanted to move away from the humor type writing to deal with more serious themes, like in this story, the Strong Angel and Read Across the Border? So would you say that you've moved away from that comic style in that book?
Not really. If you still have a couple of very humorous stories in the second book, but what I also try to do is look at some of the serious aspects that facing us as a nation, like with kidnappings and all kind of things, like with Raid Across the Border. You know, that was a prevalent thing going on in Trinidad, and that is my response to that situation. That is what I think, that is the way to deal with that kind of shit.
But you know, is writing actually gives you, would you say writing gives you the opportunity to actually see results or responses the way you would want it to be through characters?
Well, I guess sometimes you could get some satisfaction from that, you know, like when situations get out of control, that you could conjure up something that gives some relief to the victims or any kind of thing like that, you know, some form of consolation or some little thread of hope.
I find it interesting when, I mean, you're older than me, and
you find out looking so?
You're looking like you should be writing in the 1900s. But you know, it's always interesting. You have that edge, right, where you could write stories based in the 60s and the 70s. But I always find it very interesting when in 2011, and here it is, somebody's writing stories that, you know, they base so far back. I know earlier you were saying it's about recreating our world, but do you plan, or do you see in the near future where you could be dealing with more modern settings? Where you want to take your writing from here? Okay,
now there are a lot of issues that I saw in life as a young boy growing up, and you know, some harsh issues, some sufferance, people like the indentured laborers, the Africans, and treatment that were meted out to them by those in control. And I think that in order for these things, we need to educate the people a bit about the past, so that these things will be harder to happen in the future.
And you think writing is a medium that could present that?
Well, of course, because you know, you're laying the facts to the people there. Some people want to hide in a corner and defend themselves and all that kind of thing, but the fact is that these things happen, right? And these people suffered. People took advantage of other people. And if we don't lay it out there for others to see and know that, look boy, we have to get away from these kind of things. We have to improve. We have to be more careful with our dealings with people of other races, people of other status and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And that's why I like to write on the past, because the future stems out of the past.
So you have a strong sense of justice.
Well, I guess you could say so.
Okay. But how easy is it for you to write about such sensitive topic areas regarding race, class, even gender? And I mean, you're writing for a cosmopolitan audience. So how is it that you're able to do that without offending someone, so to say?
Now, I think it becomes a little easier for me because I'm a man of diverse races.
That's the easy way out.
Yeah, I have African, Indian, and European blood, right? And I am not dealing particularly like they say, well, this race is bad or that race is bad or anything like that. I mean, we have good and bad people in all the races.
Correct.
But what I am trying to deal with is wrong and right.
Okay.
You know, preventing suffering in the future, preventing people from taking advantage of lesser groups and that kind of thing.
All right. So tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now.
All right, I'm working on a novel right now. The name of the novel is Putting Up a Resistance, and that is right down the alley we were just speaking about, right? And you had this girl of African descent who fell in love with a boy of Indian descent in the 1950s, and the girl's father, a policeman, and he didn't want the Indian in his family. And well, I suppose if the boy's parents were alive, they probably wouldn't have wanted the boy to get married to an African too. But the thing is that they were in love with each other, right? And they were not seeing anything about race or anything. Love is love. People are people, all created by the same God, you understand? And they had to run from Cuba, and then they went to Erin, where they got married there, and then they came to the Andalusian estate, right? And they met up a situation there, the same situation that they run from the Meteton Force there.
Okay.
Right? Where you are the two Frenchmen running this estate, taking advantage of the Indians and Africans. And most of the people, well, I would say all the people on the estate were illiterates. They hadn't the opportunity to go to school or anything like that. And they were just like a modern day form of slavery there.
Okay.
And they were oppressed by these two Frenchmen. One of them was taking advantage of the ladies and all two on the estate. But the boy and the girl were people who went to school.
Okay.
And they had a strong sense of justice. And the girl tried to improve the lives of the other women on the estate, teaching them things. And the boy set about creating a little revolution.
So about putting up a resistance.
And that's where they put it up.
Anything you want to say in closing, Mike's?
Well, I would like to thank all the people who bought my book in the past. I mean, it had some very brave people who buy the books in the earliest. But thankful to know that they enjoy them and they're looking forward to more books.
All right, and I have one more question for you. What's your biggest joy as a writer?
To see people laughing when they read the books.
All right, Mike, thanks.